What if I told you that the worst moment of your life? I know that sounds crazy. I know when you're in the middle of the storm, when everything's been ripped away from you, the last thing you want to hear is trust the process. But stay with me, because by the end of this story, you're going to see life completely differently. And I mean that. This isn't just another feel-good speech. This is a story that's going to hit you somewhere deep, somewhere real. So sit back, clear your mind, and let's get into it. There was a young man, early 20s, walking alone through a dense forest. He wasn't hiking for fun. He wasn't on some spiritual retreat. He was broken. He'd just lost everything he owned to a group of thieves who left him with nothing. Not his money, not his belongings, not even a way to get back home. His eyes were red from crying, and his chest felt hollow, like someone had just reached in and yanked out everything that mattered. Somehow, through the trees, he spotted an old man sitting in quiet stillness. A wise saint who spent his days in that forest, living simply, thinking deeply. The young man stumbled toward him and collapsed to his knees. "Everything is gone," he said, his voice cracking. "Everything I worked for, everything I had, just gone. How can anyone say this is for the better? How can anyone look me in the eye and tell me this happened for a reason?" The saint looked at him with calm, steady eyes, the kind of eyes that have seen enough of life to know that pain is always temporary, even when it doesn't feel like it. He didn't try to comfort the young man with empty words. Instead, he said, "Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, a brutal flood tore through a small rural village and left nothing standing. Fields were destroyed. Homes were swept away. And one poor farming family lost the only thing keeping them alive, their small reserve of grain. The father stood there in the mud, staring at where his house used to be, completely devastated. But his son, a young man with a quiet kind of wisdom, placed a hand on his father's shoulder and said, "It's okay, Dad. Let it go. Whatever happened, happened for a reason." Now the father absolutely lost it. He turned on his son with fury. "What is wrong with you? Are you blind? We have nothing. No food, no shelter, no money, nothing, and you're standing here telling me it's okay?" He pointed away from him. "Get out of my sight. Just go." The son walked away with tears running down his face, and the father stood alone in the wreckage of his life. But as evening crept in and the sky turned dark, something shifted inside the old farmer. The anger drained out of him, and what filled the space it left behind was guilt. He looked around at the emptiness and felt more alone than he ever had in his life. Then, out of nowhere, a rescue boat appeared through the fog and pulled the family to safety. One of the villagers on the boat looked at the farmer and said, "You know, your son was right. You got saved, don't you see?" But the farmer shook his head. "Saved? We still have no home. No food, no future. What exactly are we saved for?" His wife, exhausted but unbroken, put her hand on his arm and said, "We may have lost our things, but we haven't lost each other. We haven't lost our will. I'll start taking work at the houses nearby. We'll earn what we need. We'll figure it out." There was something in her voice, not denial, not fake optimism, but a quiet, unshakable faith that things would turn around. The next morning, the farmer went to the city to find work. He walked from door to door, business to business, and came back with nothing. Days passed. Then weeks. His son hadn't come back. And the weight of it all pressed down on him so hard he could barely breathe. "Everyone always says whatever happens, happens for the best," he muttered to himself one night. "I want to know what's best about any of this." His wife kept pushing him to try again. And because he loved her, and because somewhere deep down he hadn't completely given up, he went back out. This time on the road, he crossed paths with a traveling saint. Something about the man made the farmer stop. He told him everything. The flood, the lost grain, the ruined crops, his son walking away, the failed job search. The saint listened to all of it without interrupting. "That's exactly why I'm telling you what happened to you was good." The farmer's jaw tightened. "Are you serious? I have nothing. My life is falling apart, and you're telling me it's good? The saint didn't flinch. He just said, the answer to every question you're carrying will come. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will come. Be patient. That night, the farmer sat alone in the dark, turning those words over and over in his mind. Was it possible? Could there actually be something on the other side of all this pain that he just couldn't see yet? A few weeks later, the farmer landed a job at the house of a wealthy merchant in the city. The merchant was generous, paid him fairly, and even offered him a small house nearby to live in. For the first time in months, the farmer had a roof, a meal, and a reason to breathe again. And then one night, there was a knock at his door. He opened it and nearly fell backward from shock. Standing there, older, steadier, and smiling, was his son. "Dad," he said, "I went looking for you and you had already moved. I had to search everywhere to find you here." The farmer pulled him inside. The son sat down and told him everything. When he left that day by the flood, he went to the city with nothing but a little courage and a whole lot of stubbornness. He got a small job. He saved every dollar he could. Eventually, he scraped together enough to open a little tea stall on the corner of a busy street. He worked it every single day. And slowly, steadily, it became something real. A livelihood, a life. The farmer sat there listening to his son and felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. He felt something unlock inside his chest. Because in that moment he understood, not just as words but as a lived truth, that every single thing that had been taken from him had been quietly rearranged into something better. He just hadn't been able to see the full picture while he was still inside the pain. Back in the forest, the young man who had been listening to the saint's story leaned forward. "Okay, I get it for the farmer, but me? I was robbed. Someone literally stole my things. What possible good comes from that?" The saint reached into the folds of his robe and pulled out something that caught the light in a way that made the young man's breath catch in his throat. It was a stone, glowing with a warmth that didn't seem natural. "I found this in the forest earlier today," the saint said. "It's yours." The young man stared at it. He recognized it immediately. It was a philosopher's stone, ancient and extraordinary, the kind of stone spoken about in legends, the kind that was said to transform iron into gold. If those robbers hadn't taken everything from him, he never would have come to this forest. He never would have been desperate enough to wander off the main road. He never would have stumbled upon this old saint sitting quietly between the trees. And he never would have found what he was now holding in his hands. So here's what I want you to take away from this today. Life doesn't always give you what you think you need in the moment you think you need it. Sometimes it strips things away, and it feels brutal and unfair and completely without reason. But that stripping away is often just the universe clearing a path to something you never could have found if everything had stayed exactly the way it was. Your worst days are not the end of your story. They are the very things that are redirecting you. Don't make permanent decisions out of temporary pain. Don't close the door on your future just because the present looks dark. Keep going. Keep showing up. Because the plot twist you're waiting for, the moment where everything finally makes sense, it's coming. It's already being written. You just have to be patient enough to get to that chapter.